The Galactic Council was the most powerful group in the galaxy. It was made of leaders from many alien species. For over 500 years, they kept peace across thousands of planets. They believed they could control everything, every war, every colony, every species. But one day, everything changed. It started with a message, a short and broken signal from a human colony called New Terra. The message only lasted for 30 seconds, but it shocked the entire galaxy. This is New Terra, under attack. Unknown ships, millions in danger, please. Then silence. The message ended. The council received it, but they did not respond. They said it was probably a mistake, a pirate attack, maybe a system error. Nothing serious, but it was serious. New Terra was home to over 2 million humans. It was one of Earth's first colonies in deep space. It was peaceful. It had no weapons, no soldiers. It focused on farming, science, and trade. When Earth heard about the attack, they sent ships to investigate. The ships returned with only one thing: ashes. There was no one left. The entire colony was gone, burned, destroyed. And there were no clues. No bodies, no enemy ships, no black boxes, nothing. Earth asked the Galactic Council for answers. They asked again and again, who attacked New Terra? Why? How? But the Council gave no answer. They acted confused. Some members even laughed. One alien leader said, maybe humans should not build colonies so far from home. Another said, why blame us? You humans always fear too much. Then Earth went silent. No more messages, no more questions, no threats, just silence. The Council thought the humans were weak. They believed Earth would forget, that humans would move on. They had done it before. After all, humans were known for peace talks, not war. But they were wrong. So very wrong. In the deep space of the Sol system, something was happening. Quietly, without a word, Earth began to change. Military ships that were once in public view began to vanish. Satellite networks turned off their civilian channels. Entire cities went into lockdown. Factories started working day and night. People trained in the streets. Children were taken into special schools. Scientists disappeared into underground labs. The news stopped showing entertainment. Instead, it played history lessons, old human wars, past betrayals, ancient battles. Still, Earth said nothing. Across the galaxy, spies from other alien species tried to collect information. But they found nothing. Earth's systems had changed. Its internet was now closed. Its stations refused to speak to outsiders. One council spy reported, it's like they're preparing for something, but I don't know what. His message was the last one. He never returned. Back at the Galactic Council, there was still no fear. The Council believed humans were emotional, not dangerous. They thought Earth was just sad, maybe angry, but not a real threat. But one small alien advisor named Kareth, who had studied humans for years, felt uneasy. He stood in the council hall and said, "You are making a mistake. You do not understand them." The other leaders laughed. "They're just humans," one said. "Soft, kind, always talking about peace." Kareth shook his head. "No, they are something else when pushed. You don't see it now, but they will show you." The council ignored him. That night, Kareth packed his things and quietly left the council station. He knew what was coming. Because in human history, there was a pattern. When humans are ignored, they speak. When they are laughed at, they prepare. But when they go silent, they are already coming. Days passed after the silence from Earth. The Galactic Council waited for a reply, a protest, maybe even a demand. But none came. There was nothing. No voice, no complaint. Just complete quiet from the humans. At first, the council found this peaceful. Some leaders thought Earth had accepted the loss of its colony. Others believed humans had simply moved on. A few even joked about it, saying, "Humans talk too much. Their silence is a gift." But not everyone was calm. In hidden corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Small reports started coming in. Strange sightings near human space. Cargo ships said they saw dark shapes moving between stars, ships that didn't respond to calls. Distant outposts reported strange signals, cold, patternless, almost mechanical. One freighter captain, a bird-like creature from the Varnak species, told his report in fear. "We passed by a quiet system near the edge of human space. The stars looked normal, but something felt wrong. We saw lights, slow, organized, not like pirates, not like patrols. And then, nothing. Our sensors went blank for 5 minutes. When they came back, the lights were gone, but the feeling remained, like someone had watched us from very close." His report was marked as unimportant by Council command. They didn't listen. Meanwhile, something very unusual began happening on Earth's trade routes. Human ships stopped carrying luxury goods. They stopped visiting entertainment hubs. Mining freighters returned early, carrying raw materials instead of finished goods. Farming vessels brought food only to Earth's colonies, nowhere else. When alien traders asked questions, human captains smiled but gave no real answers. "We are just focusing on home," one said. "Too much travel isn't safe these days," said another. Behind those friendly words, there was something else. Distance, caution, and something much harder to see. Focus. Then came the biggest surprise. A small council station near the neutral zone sent a long message to the council's main headquarters. They had received a visit from a group of human diplomats. But these diplomats were not like before. They wore no symbols. They gave no greetings. They asked no questions. They only gave a folder. Inside were reports about the lost colony of Nutera, satellite pictures, data logs, radio messages, all carefully collected by Earth's teams. But that was not the strange part. At the bottom of the report was a simple line, written in many languages. "We remember." No threats, no names, just 2 words. The council became confused. Was it a warning? A promise? A message of sadness? One senior member of the council, an elder from the Rathak species, spoke in the meeting. "This is not just a message. This is a sign of choice. The humans are telling us they will act, but not with anger, with planning. And when they act, it will be clear." The room fell silent. The council's intelligence network tried to gather more details. They sent quiet observers to Earth's nearby colonies. Some returned. Many didn't. One observer, who did make it back, shared something strange. He saw large training centers being built in open fields. Families were inside, young and old, studying, learning languages, mathematics, science, strategy. He saw factories where machines worked nonstop. He saw engineers testing new kinds of engines. He saw children building models of ships and teaching each other. "They are not making war," he said. "They are making something else, something with purpose. They are becoming ready." The council tried to hide this information, but the news spread anyway. In marketplaces, people whispered about Earth's silence. In military halls, soldiers asked questions about the missing colony. In the corners of the galaxy, old allies of Earth watched with worry and with quiet respect. A historian from a distant species wrote in her private journal, "This silence is not weakness. It is something else." In the stories of old Earth, before they joined the stars, they had times like this. Times of loss, followed by times of growth. They do not speak loudly, but their actions are louder than any word. 1 week later, a routine galactic patrol passed by a human border. They sent a signal, just a simple message to check on their neighbors. There was no reply. They tried again. Still nothing. Then, after a long pause, they received a single word on the screen. "Not now." No anger, no detail, just that. The patrol returned and shared the message with the council. This time, even the loudest leaders stayed quiet. They did not laugh. They did not ignore. Something had changed. It was no longer about fear. It was about not knowing what came next. Earth had chosen silence. But silence was not the absence of action. It was the space before it. Weeks passed in uneasy quiet. The Galactic Council's once unshakable confidence began to crack. Earth was no longer sending regular communication. There were no threats, no warnings, no words at all. Just silence. The patrols continued their routine, but now, a strange unease hung in the air. Something was different, something that they couldn't quite put their finger on. But as the days passed, a few small events began to unravel the mystery. First, a small research station near the edge of human space, barely a dot on the maps, reported a strange signal. It was weak, faint, but it repeated. The signal was unlike any they had ever encountered. It was not a distress call, nor was it a regular communication. It was a sequence of numbers, then letters, then words. And at the end of each transmission, just before the signal cut off, the same phrase appeared: "We are watching." The research team, confused and alarmed, tried to respond, but the signal was gone by the time they finished their attempt. When they later checked their recordings, they found that the signal had been sent from deep within the human sector, much further than any of Earth's usual communication lines reached. Soon after, more of these strange signals started appearing, scattered all over the galaxy. Always from deep within human territory, always with the same message: "We are watching." The council wasn't sure how to interpret it. Was it a warning? A threat? Or was it simply a message meant to unsettle them? The confusion only deepened when a high-ranking official in the council, a former human ally, returned from a visit to a human colony. His report shocked everyone. "There's something happening on Earth," he said, looking pale. "I've never seen anything like it." He explained that on his visit, he noticed a significant shift. The human cities, which once pulsed with life and activity, were quieter. There were no protests, no debates. People moved in a strange kind of unison, as if following an invisible rhythm. He said it felt like the entire planet was waiting for something. What disturbed him the most, however, was the look on their faces. "They are calm. Too calm," he said, his voice low. "It's like they know something we don't. They aren't afraid. They're just waiting." The council didn't want to acknowledge the possibility of what that could mean, but it was becoming more and more difficult to ignore. Days turned into weeks, and the situation grew stranger. Ships coming from human colonies to galactic trade hubs began to follow a new, unfamiliar route. They moved slowly, deliberately, and sometimes they simply disappeared from the sensors, reappearing hours later, unmarked, as if they had traveled through a hidden path in space. One such ship, a cargo vessel named the Astral Dawn, passed by a neutral station. The crew reported that their communication systems had been interfered with. They were unable to send a signal for over an hour. When they finally made contact, they were shaken and confused. "There was something out there," the captain said. "We saw lights, but not like any lights we've seen before. They moved fast, like they were tracking us. We couldn't make sense of it." When asked if they were certain, the captain said nothing more, only staring ahead. Despite the captain's reticence, the Galactic Council decided to send a team of scouts to investigate. What they found was even stranger. There were no signs of any ship or alien presence, but the area was different. The very stars seemed to behave oddly, their light dimming and brightening in unnatural patterns. Some systems even showed signs of temporal distortion, where time itself seemed to move in strange bursts. It was all too much to ignore. A decision was made. The council would have to investigate Earth itself. But they did not send just anyone. They chose a highly skilled team of diplomats and intelligence officers to travel directly to Earth's capital. As the team prepared to leave, they felt the weight of their task. They were going to the heart of the unknown, the unknown that had already left them unsettled and uncertain for so long. When the diplomats arrived, they were met not with the usual grand welcomes but with an eerie calm. Earth's leaders, the highest-ranking officials, greeted them without any words of apology or explanation. Instead, they took them on a private tour of Earth's inner facilities, places that had never been shown to outsiders. In the deepest levels of the planet's most protected areas, the diplomats saw rows upon rows of new ships, sleek, quiet, and powerful. These ships were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. There were no names, no markings. They had been built in secret, hidden away from the outside world. They were pristine, their designs optimized for speed, stealth, and efficiency. In the center of the facility stood a massive control center, its walls covered with images of distant galaxies. On the screens, distant fleets moved across the stars, silent, but clearly moving in a pattern. "Why are you showing us this?" one of the diplomats asked. The human official smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "This," the official said softly, "is what happens when you force silence on a species. This is what happens when you take everything from them." For the first time, the diplomats began to understand. They began to realize what Earth had been preparing for all this time. The silence wasn't fear. It wasn't weakness. It was a warning. And now, the warning was almost over. The diplomats returned to their ship, their minds racing with the implications of what they had just witnessed. Earth was no longer the home of a vulnerable species, struggling to find its place among the stars. It had become something far more dangerous, a quiet, hidden force, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As the ship made its way back to the Council's headquarters, the diplomats couldn't stop thinking about the words of the human official. This is what happens when you take everything from them. What did that mean? What had the Galactic Council truly taken from Earth? The colonies, the resources, the people? Perhaps it wasn't just the physical losses that Earth had suffered. Perhaps it was something deeper, something that no one had expected, not even the humans themselves. Back at the Council, a full emergency meeting was called. The highest-ranking officials gathered, their faces grim. The room was silent for a long time, the weight of the information settling over them like a heavy fog. "This changes everything," one of the leaders said, his voice barely above a whisper. The news of the new fleet of ships on Earth had shaken the Council to its core. These were not just any ships. They were sophisticated, powerful, and eerily silent. There was no indication of how long they had been in development, or what their purpose truly was. But the diplomats had seen the signs. The control center on Earth's hidden facility had displayed maps, showing fleets of ships moving across the stars, silent, almost invisible, moving in a pattern that suggested great precision. "They're planning something," another diplomat said, her voice strained. "Something that we're not ready for." The Council could feel the growing tension in the air. For centuries, they had thought of Earth as a young, naive species, one that was still finding its way. But now, they realized just how wrong they had been. Earth was not vulnerable. It had simply been waiting. The question was no longer whether Earth would retaliate, it was when. In the coming days, the Council took action. They sent spies, scouts, and intelligence operatives to observe Earth's movements, trying to piece together the puzzle. What had Earth been doing all this time? What were they preparing for? Reports came back that Earth's colonies were now fully self-sufficient. The humans had stopped relying on the Galactic trade network for resources. Their colonies had developed advanced technologies that no one had seen before. Energy sources, propulsion systems, and even communication networks had all been developed independently by Earth's engineers. One report from an independent observer described a meeting held on one of Earth's colonies. They spoke of an old Earth proverb. The report said, "When you have nothing left to lose, you fight with everything you have." The Council was starting to understand the shift. Earth had been pushed to the edge. It had been forced into a corner, and now it was preparing to strike back, not with raw power, but with calculated precision. The next few weeks were tense. The Council received a number of strange reports from distant sectors, alien ships that had entered human space and never returned, stations that had gone dark for no apparent reason, entire fleets that seemed to disappear from the galaxy's radar, only to reappear in places no one had expected. The whispers grew louder. Earth wasn't just playing the game, it was changing the rules. And then, one day, a transmission came through. It was a simple message, but its implications were vast. It was broadcast on all frequencies, galactic communication channels, trade routes, private networks, and public broadcasts. The message, transmitted in dozens of languages, was unmistakable. We are here, and we will not be ignored any longer. The message was sent with no return address. No sender, just a clear declaration of intent. No threats, no demands, just that simple phrase. The Council scrambled to make sense of it. Was it a warning, a declaration of war, or simply a statement of intent? The human fleet, still a mystery, had not moved. It was quiet, hidden, waiting. But now, the Council could no longer pretend that they had the upper hand. The silence from Earth had ended, and the galaxy could feel the change. Earth was no longer the weak, struggling species it had once been. It was a force unto itself, and it was ready to make its presence known. As the diplomats, leaders, and officials of the Galactic Council debated their next move, one thing became clear. Earth had been playing a long game, and they were not going to lose. Not now. The Council could no longer ignore the truth. Earth had crossed a line. They had waited long enough. Now, it was time for them to take their place among the stars, not as a weak species, but as one that could no longer be pushed around. And no one knew what that would mean for the future. The galaxy was on edge. The simple message from Earth had shaken the foundations of the Galactic Council. It wasn't just a declaration. It was a symbol of something far deeper. Humanity had always been underestimated, but now, the entire galaxy had to reconsider that mistake. As Earth's transmissions continued, no one could predict what would come next. The Council had ordered increased patrols around human space, but the silence was overwhelming. Nothing moved. No ships. No signs of life from any of Earth's colonies. It was as if the entire species had vanished into the shadows. Then, a breakthrough came. The diplomatic envoy, made up of the galaxy's finest negotiators, was sent to Earth. Their mission was clear: to understand the true meaning behind the message. They were to find out what Earth was really planning, and if possible, to convince the humans to return to the peaceful, cooperative ways they had once shared with the galaxy. But as the diplomats approached Earth, the feeling of unease grew. The planet itself seemed more distant now, like a silent sentinel that watched the rest of the galaxy with cold eyes. The stars around Earth's orbit, which had once been friendly and welcoming, now seemed foreboding, as if they had grown dimmer with time. The diplomatic ship entered Earth's orbit cautiously. The crew expected a welcome, even if it was a guarded one. Instead, they were met with radio silence. No signals, no communication. The captain muttered, "This is strange." They sent a signal out, a simple request for permission to dock, but received nothing in return. The crew sat in stunned silence, unable to comprehend why Earth, the very heart of humanity, was offering no response. The transmission lines were open, the technology on board was working, yet not a single reply came. The diplomats, now growing anxious, prepared for the worst. The captain looked toward the viewports, hoping to catch a glimpse of the familiar planet below. But Earth appeared strangely quiet from space. No movement, no bustling cities visible, no faint glimmers of activity. After several minutes of waiting in tense silence, a signal finally came. But it wasn't from Earth itself. Instead, the message was from a mysterious location, one that the diplomats had never encountered before. It wasn't an official communication, nor did it seem like a government transmission. It was a private message, a coded one, a message sent only for their eyes. The encrypted message read, Do not fear the silence. Fear what follows. The diplomats, already on edge, exchanged confused looks. What was that supposed to mean? And who had sent it? Trying to remain calm, the captain authorized a descent to the surface, signaling for the diplomatic team to prepare for their meeting. They landed on Earth, still under the impression that they would meet with Earth's leadership. But something was different. The streets of Earth's capital city, which had once been filled with life and energy, were now eerily deserted. When they arrived at the governmental building, no one greeted them. Instead, they were escorted to a large chamber where only one figure awaited them. The man sitting at the center of the room was not an official from the government, nor a representative of any known faction. He was a stranger, someone they had never seen before. "Welcome to Earth," the man said, his voice low and calm. "You've come at an interesting time." The diplomats sat down, unsure of how to respond. Who was this person? And why had they been allowed to meet with him instead of Earth's official leaders? "You may be wondering why you're not meeting with the president or the council," the man continued. "The truth is, they are no longer in charge." The room fell silent. "Earth is changing," the man said, "and the message you received is just the beginning of what you will witness." He stood and walked over to a large screen, tapping a few buttons to bring up an image of Earth's orbit. A fleet of ships, sleek and advanced, hovered just beyond the planet's atmosphere. There were no markings, no flags to indicate whose ships they were. They were simply there. The diplomats stared at the screen, their hearts racing. They had expected a peaceful negotiation. Not this. The ships were unlike anything they had seen before, silent, streamlined, and powerful. They looked like something from a time long forgotten. "Those are our ships," the man said. "They've been built in secret, hidden away from the eyes of the galaxy. And they are the first of many." The diplomats felt a cold chill run down their spines. Earth had not only been preparing for something, they had been building an entirely new force, a fleet capable of moving undetected, of appearing out of nowhere, and of disappearing just as quickly. And this was only the beginning. "We've learned that silence is power," the man said, turning to face them. "When you make no noise, no one can hear you coming. No one can stop you. We've learned how to move unseen, unnoticed, until we're ready to make our presence known." His words were not those of a diplomat. They were the words of someone who had witnessed the full extent of Earth's transformation, a transformation that had begun long before the Council realized what was happening. The diplomats sat in stunned silence. What had they walked into? Earth wasn't just preparing to defend itself, it was preparing to strike, to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. "We understand," the man said, his tone now colder. "You thought Earth would stay in the shadows forever. You thought we were weak. But the truth is, we were waiting. We were waiting for the moment when we could stand on our own." The room grew heavier. The weight of those words sank in. "We will no longer be your pawns," the man added, his eyes narrowing. "The galaxy will now see us as equals. You may not like how we've chosen to make our mark, but you will respect us. And when the time comes, you will see that we are not just another species to be overlooked." The diplomats could feel the power in his words. Earth had crossed a threshold, a point of no return. They were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would have to find a way to deal with it. The days following the diplomats' return were filled with an unsettling silence. The message from Earth had been clear, but its true meaning was still unclear to many. No one could deny that humanity had changed, but just how much had they evolved? And more importantly, what did this shift mean for the future of the galaxy? The Galactic Council was in turmoil. Delegates from all corners of the galaxy were in disagreement. Some argued that Earth's rise was inevitable, a natural progression of their species. Others, however, saw Earth's sudden strength as a threat to the balance of power that had existed for centuries. In a private meeting, a small group of high-ranking officials sat around a large table. The atmosphere was tense. No one knew what to say next. The diplomat who had returned from Earth spoke first. "We were wrong," she admitted, her voice heavy. "All of us. We underestimated humanity. They're no longer the weak species we once thought they were. The fleet they built in secret is only the tip of the iceberg. We've barely scratched the surface of what they've prepared." Another official, a stoic figure from one of the galaxy's oldest races, leaned forward, his fingers tapping the table thoughtfully. "But what is their end goal? What do they want from us? What are they planning?" No one had an answer. The question echoed in the room, but no one had the words to address it. The only thing that was certain was that Earth had been preparing for something. But what? As the days passed, more and more reports came in from the outer reaches of the galaxy. Some spoke of strange occurrences, unexplained disappearances of ships traveling through human-controlled space, uncharted territories showing signs of rapid development, and most worryingly, a new series of transmissions that seemed to be coming directly from Earth. The transmissions were fragmented, scattered across multiple channels, and heavily encrypted. But the message was always the same. Prepare for what is coming. The galaxy will never be the same. The message was unsettling, not just because of the cryptic tone, but because it hinted at something far larger than anyone had anticipated. Humanity was preparing for something, but what could it be? In response to the growing uncertainty, the Council decided to send a reconnaissance fleet to observe Earth's space more closely. The fleet was tasked with gathering more information, but even as they approached Earth's orbit, the feeling of danger loomed large. Aboard the flagship of the reconnaissance fleet, the commanding officer stared at the holographic display. Earth was visible, but it looked different. The once vibrant blue planet now appeared shadowed, as though something ominous had taken hold. The fleet commander's unease grew with each passing second. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," a crew member said, breaking the silence. The officer's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." The holographic screen flickered to life, revealing a simple, unmarked symbol, a circle with a line cutting through the center. It was an emblem that no one recognized. The message that followed was just as cryptic as the symbol. "This is not an invitation. This is a warning." The fleet commander's hand hovered over the controls. The message was clear, but it raised even more questions. Who were they warning? And why? "Prepare for full analysis," the officer ordered. "I want every data point on Earth's orbital activity, every ship movement, and every communication intercepted. We can't afford to miss anything." The reconnaissance fleet continued its observation, but as they moved closer to Earth's space, they noticed something strange. The ships in Earth's orbit, once thought to be part of a secret fleet, had vanished. Not a single one remained. In its place, however, was an eerie calm, the kind of calm that unsettled the mind. Back on the Council, a report came in that only deepened the mystery. The outer colonies of Earth were thriving, but not in the way anyone had expected. The colonies had become self-sustaining, with advanced technologies that rivaled anything the Council had ever seen. The human colonies were no longer relying on intergalactic trade routes for resources. Instead, they were producing their own energy, manufacturing their own ships, and exploring unknown sectors of the galaxy. But it wasn't just the technological advances that were worrying the Council. It was the behavior of the colonies themselves. Rumors spread that the colonies were no longer answering to the Council's diplomatic channels. They had become independent, self-governing entities, each with its own agenda. And there was something unsettling about the way the colonies were interacting with one another. There was a unity to their actions, an unspoken understanding between them that suggested something far deeper than mere cooperation. It was clear now. Earth had not only built a fleet, but it had also established a network of colonies capable of acting independently, communicating without the need for the Galactic Council's oversight. The Council began to fear that the true strength of humanity lay not in their fleet of ships, but in their collective will, their ability to unite and act as one, without relying on any outside authority. As the Galactic Council debated its next steps, a new report came in. The reconnaissance fleet, now fully entrenched in Earth's space, had discovered something unexpected. A hidden station, massive in size and unknown to any galactic database, sat just beyond Earth's orbit. It was a station unlike any the Council had ever seen. It was dark, its exterior smooth and featureless, as if it had been built to blend in with the stars themselves. The fleet commander immediately sent a signal to the Council. "We found something. We don't know what it is, but it's big. And it's right there, waiting." The Council was now faced with an undeniable truth. Earth had prepared for something. And whatever it was, they had been hiding it in plain sight. They were no longer just a species on the edge of the galaxy. Earth had become a power that could no longer be ignored, a force capable of changing the balance of the stars.